heart attacks usually begin years before the chest pain, and why this happens earlier in many Indians. The surprising part? Most people are looking at the wrong culprit. You have probably been told cholesterol is the biggest cause of heart attacks, but cholesterol is only one chapter of a much bigger story, because the damage often starts long before cholesterol becomes the problem, and one hidden type of body fat may quietly trigger that process, even in people who don't look overweight. That's one reason many Indians develop diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease almost a decade earlier than many Western populations. The good news? Once you understand how this process works, you'll know exactly what to look for and what you can actually change. So let's string down, travel inside an artery, and watch second by second how a heart attack really begins. Before we go inside the artery, we need to answer one important question. Why are Indians developing heart disease so much earlier? Here's a question that surprised researchers for decades. Imagine two people, same age, same height, same weight. Both have perfectly normal body mass index. One lives in London and the other lives in Mumbai. Which one do you think is more likely to develop diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease? Surprisingly, research often points to the Indian, even when they don't look overweight. That's the part many people find difficult to believe, because we have grown up believing something simple. If you are slim, you are healthy. But modern research tells a more complicated story. Your weight doesn't always tell you what's happening inside your body, and that's where today's story really begins. Most of us judge health by what we see in the mirror, but your body doesn't judge health that way. Because not all body fat is the same. The fat under your skin is called subcutaneous fat. It's the fat you can pinch with your fingers. But there's another kind of hidden, much deeper. It's called visceral fat. And unlike the fat under your skin, you can't see it in the mirror. It wraps itself around your liver, your pancreas, and your intestine. This is the fat doctors worry about the most. Here's something most people never heard. Your body fat isn't just sitting there storing energy. It behaves almost like another organ. It constantly sends chemical messages throughout your body. Some increase inflammation, some make it harder for your body to control blood sugar, others can contribute to high blood pressure. In other words, this fat isn't just being stored. It's actively changing how your body works. But there's one important piece we are still missing. How do these changes eventually damage an artery? Because hidden fat doesn't cause a heart attack overnight. Something has to happen in between. So let's string down, travel inside an artery. And watch exactly what happens one tiny step at a time. Now let's go somewhere no one can normally see, inside one of your arteries. At first, everything looks perfect. Blood moves effortlessly, delivering oxygen and nutrients to every part of your body. The inner lining of your artery is incredibly smooth and almost like a polished glass. And that's exactly how it is supposed to work. But here's something almost nobody feels happening. Long before a heart attack, long before chest pain, tiny injuries begin appearing in this delicate lining. They are so small you can't feel them. No pain, no warning signs, no signal telling you anything is wrong. Which is why heart disease often surprises people years later. Here's the surprising part. Those tiny injuries are not the problem. In fact, your body immediately starts repairing them. Think about scraping your knee. Your body doesn't ignore it, it repairs it. Your arteries work exactly the same way. The moment damage appears, your body sends a repair team. Cholesterol, immune cells, and other healing material rush to the area. For a while, everything works perfectly. But now imagine something different. What if the artery keeps getting damaged again and again for years? Every time damage appears, another repair crew arrives. Layers after layer, those repairs slowly builds up. Not in weeks, not in months, but often over decades. Eventually, a small bump begins forming inside the artery. And here's one of the biggest misconceptions about heart disease. Most people think this plaque slowly blocks the artery until one day heart attack happens. That sounds logical, but that's usually not what causes the emergency. Many people live with plaque for years without knowing it's there. So if plaque isn't usually the direct cause, what turns a quiet plaque into life-threatening emergency? Everything you have seen so far has taken years to develop. What happens next takes only minutes. Let's watch the exact moment a heart attack begins, second by second. Everything you have seen until now happened over years, sometimes even decades. But what happens next can unfold in just few minutes. This is the moment most people think of as heart attack. One day, the surface of that plaque develops a tiny crack. It may happen because ongoing inflammation has weakened it, or because years of damage have made it fragile. Whatever is the reason, your body reacts instantly. Because your body doesn't know the difference between a cut on your finger and a crack inside an artery. Its only mission is simple: stop the bleeding. Tiny blood cells called platelets arrive within seconds. They stick together, forming a blood clot over the damaged area. If this happened on your skin, that clot could save your life. Inside an artery, the exact same process can become dangerous. Arteries aren't wide enough spaces. They are narrow highways carrying oxygen-rich blood to your heart. As the clot grows, less blood can get through. The opening becomes smaller and smaller until it suddenly becomes completely blocked. The moment blood stops, the heart muscle beyond the blockage loses its oxygen supply. And unlike many tissues in your body, heart muscle cannot survive for long without oxygen. Within minutes, heart cells begin to die. That is what we call a heart attack. But here's the part I hope you remember long after this video ends. The heart attack didn't begin when the clot formed. It didn't even begin when the plaque formed. It began years earlier, with tiny damage that no one could see or feel. Which means, by the time someone has a heart attack, the disease has usually been developing silently for many years. So here's the question that really matters. What keeps damaging the artery year after year? Many people immediately blame the cholesterol. Cholesterol plays a role, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. Because several risk factors quietly work together long before symptoms appear. And that's where everything we have discussed so far finally comes together. So now we understand how a heart attack happens, but we still haven't answered the biggest question. What keeps damaging the artery year after year? The answer isn't one thing. It's several small problems working together every single day. Think of your artery like a freshly painted wall. One tiny scratch doesn't ruin it. But if someone scratches it every day for years, eventually the wall starts falling apart. Your artery behaves in a very similar way. Let's meet the 5 biggest contributors. Smoking exposes the artery lining to thousands of harmful chemicals. Imagine rubbing a sandpaper against delicate glass. That's why smoking dramatically accelerates artery damage. High blood pressure creates another problem. Blood pushes harder against the artery wall every second of every day. Over years, that constant pressure weakens the delicate lining. High blood sugar causes damage in a different way. Excess glucose can injure the cells lining your arteries. That's one reason diabetes dramatically increases the risk of heart disease. And what about cholesterol? Cholesterol isn't the villain people often imagine. Remember, your body actually uses cholesterol to repair the damaged arteries. The problem begins when there is repeated damage and too much LDL gets trapped inside the artery wall. That's how plaque gradually develops. There's one major player that doesn't get enough attention: chronic inflammation. Instead of helping your body heal, ongoing inflammation keeps the repair process switched on. It's like construction workers who never leave the site. Over time, the repair itself becomes the part of the problem. So, where does hidden visceral fat fit into all of this? This is why doctors are paying so much attention to this today. Visceral fat can quietly contribute to inflammation, insulin resistance, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, unhealthy cholesterol. In other words, it doesn't just create one problem. It can influence several of the biggest risk factors at the same time. Now, here's the best part of the entire story. None of this means a heart attack is inevitable, because the very thing that damages your arteries are also things you can improve. Lower your blood pressure, improve your blood sugar, stop smoking, stay active, reduce visceral fat, and you're changing the story years before a heart attack ever has a chance to happen. Remember how this video began. Heart attack doesn't begin with chest pain. It begins with 1,000 tiny changes repeated over years. And the choices you make today can change those tiny changes in your favor. And that's why prevention doesn't start in the emergency room. It starts years earlier with understanding what's happening inside your body. But one mystery still remains. How does hidden visceral fat make your body resistant to insulin? Why does that single change increases the risk of diabetes, fatty liver, weight gain, and eventually heart disease? That's exactly what we will uncover in the next episode.